Chris Mannix, host of the Chris Mannix Show, weekday afternoons, NBC Sports Radio, the 24-hour sports talk network. Download the app, subscribe to the Mannix podcast. The vertical has been all over the NBA trade deadline. Let's start, Chris, with Jahlil Okafor. About a half hour left before the Sixers can make a move here. Thoughts on what we're hearing about Okafor, throughout the course of this day so far and the last couple of days? It's been an odd journey for him.
Yeah, it has. They've been protective of him, kind of putting him in bubble wrap for parts of the last couple of weeks and hope of having a deal. They thought they had one about a week ago. That fell through, and they continue to shop him around. Chicago has strong interest in Jahlil Okafor. There's a couple other teams lurking out there that would be interested, although they lost a potential contender when New Orleans made that DeMarcus Cousins deal. The Pelicans had some interest on that end as well. There's obviously, it'd be foolish to say that they're not motivated to deal Okafor, but at the same time, there still is a high value placed on this player. And, they're not willing to come off that value all that much in a prospective deal. So if they don't get a offer that they believe is commensurate with the third overall draft pick that they think Okafor is, they're not going to be afraid to hold on to this guy, Mike, beyond the deadline. They don't want to, and they are keenly aware that Okafor, Noel, and Embiid is just not sustainable long term. But they're not going to make a deal here just for the sake of making one.
Chris Mannix, The Vertical, and NBC here on the Sports Bash. Thoughts on the move last night, Ilyasova? What is that a sign of anything, or is that just Colangelo saying we have no intention? We'll just take what we can get for a guy we weren't going to bring back?
Yeah, people have tried to connect like Thiago Splitter to an Okafor deal. I think Thiago Splitter's probably done for his career. He hasn't played, I don't think, at all this season, and I don't know, the injuries he's had. I don't know if he's ever going to be able to come back. This was about clearing playing time for Dario Saric. Saric needs to get as many minutes as humanly possible, and Ilyasova was kind of standing in the way of that. This is all about development for Saric, and if he can get more minutes out of that, that's what Philadelphia is most happy about.
Chris, thoughts on the Cousins deal now that the dust has settled? We know the Sixers fans are kind of jumping for joy that they kind of indirectly made out here, but this is kind of a sign of the times with this CBA that was supposed to help out, the players, kind of helped out a team in this situation, or kind of indirectly hurt Cousins because he loses out on big money.
Yeah, yes, but, that's if you believe that, New Orleans, if they had the opportunity, would actually give him the 5-year, $219 million contract. Outside of Vivek Ranadive, everybody in the NBA thought it was insanity to give Cousins that type of deal. He's proven nothing, and he's been nothing but a pain in the ass for most of the last few years. So, he might get that deal, but nobody's going to give him that deal this offseason, at least if not New Orleans. Now, if this works between Cousins and Anthony Davis and it looks like they can be sustainable, I'm sure the Pelicans will make him an offer, but it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be the 5-year full max that he might be thinking about. It might be, the Pelicans are kind of in a desperate situation with their general manager, but, they just, signed Anthony Davis to a monster deal. Do they really want to sign DeMarcus Cousins to a comparable monster deal? So, it's kind of a false narrative that Cousins lost out on a bunch of money. Only Vivek Ranadive was nuts enough to think that Cousins was worth that type of deal.
Two good pronunciations by Chris Mannix there of Vivek Ranadive's name. Butler, George, either one gone by the end of by the deadline.
Well, my colleague Adrian Wojnarowski just reported that Boston started to engage the Pacers on Paul George, and this is what you expected. Boston, they love a good game of chicken. They love waiting until the last couple of hours and kind of daring teams to to hold on to their players and not take their treasure trove of assets in a potential deal. Danny Ainge has had enormous success over the last few years in making trades. The Rondo deal, obviously the deal that gave them those 2 Brooklyn picks, with the Pearson Garnett trade. This is going to take some time. This is going to be over the next couple of hours. We're going to be seeing exactly what Boston's willing to give. I think it's far more likely that Boston's able to construct a deal to get Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, to me, 2 years left of his contract. Chicago's not going anywhere. The Bulls, they love themselves some good point guards. If they have an opportunity to get a Markelle Fultz or Alonzo Ball in the draft, one of those top 2 picks, it's going to be hard for Gar Forman and John Paxson to turn that down. So, it might be 2:55, Eastern time when a deal like that happens. But I can see that being something that gets visited and revisited down the line.
Wouldn't it be fun to see Danny Ainge have Larry Bird help the Celtics win? That would be a nice story. Chris Mannix, last one.
It's more interesting. It's more interesting to see Larry Bird and Magic Johnson make a deal together.
That is true. That is true. And Magic, of course, they've been talked there. Just overall, big names, small names. Just give us a couple nuggets that are going on in your mind as we're getting to the end of this deadline here.
Well, I had reported today that Reggie Jackson is, he's not being auctioned off at this point, but he's getting close to it. The Pistons are looking for a first-round pick and a rookie contract type of guy and/or an expiring contract. Phoenix is a team to watch. Brandon Knight, Eric Bledsoe. I think the Suns would like to move one of those 2 players. Plus, they have Tyson Chandler with a big contract that they'd like to get off the books. I can see one of those players on the move. And Dallas with Darren Williams and Andrew Bogut, 2 rotation role players. Both those players are in play as we approach 3 p.m.
Real quick, 3 yes or no's. Carmelo, here or gone?
He stays in New York.
Okafor?
I'm going to guess they make a deal for him before the deadline, yeah.
He's Chris Mannix from The Vertical, host of the Chris Mannix Show, weekday afternoons, NBC Sports Radio. Download the app, subscribe to the Mannix Podcast. Take care, Chris.
All right, Mike.